Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining, taking out the time today. I am pretty excited about the session. Um, I am excited to invite and welcome Aaron Rose to the session. Aaron is considered one of the topmost experts on SaaS in general, and I'd say sales in particular. His book, Predictable Revenue, is treated as the Bible for sales by many, including myself. And he's interesting in the sense that he makes a lot of money, spends a lot of money. He has got 11 kids, 6 of them adopted. And then he spends a lot of time with the family too, and he runs on 25-hour work weeks. So I can keep going, but with that, welcome Aaron. Thanks a lot. So Aaron, let's start with the 25-hour work week, right? Why 25 hours? Like people talk about like work harder and harder. Why 25 hours?
Okay, when there's sometimes you do need to work harder, and that makes sense. But for me, I think I'd done things like investment banking where I'd worked 100-hour weeks or more. I had started my company. At some point, when I left, I worked at Salesforce. I created the outbound sales team there that helped them grow faster. And by now it's created, I don't know, $1 billion or billions of revenue for them. I left Salesforce and was just spending time kind of figuring out what did I want to do with my life. Mm-hmm. And I realized I didn't want to start a company. I'd left Salesforce thinking I want to start a company again, raise money, be CEO, Silicon Valley. And after a few months of just kind of exploring and thinking, and I don't really want to do that. I don't want to raise money. I don't want to start a company. I don't want to be a Silicon Valley CEO. Mm-hmm. I don't want to make as much money as I want doing what I love. Sure. Now, I'm not sure what that is. And just kind of through this time, it was really a few months. This is like 2007. Mm-hmm. But the 25-hour work week just kind of came around from thinking, the amount of hours you work doesn't define people's success, right? Bill Gates has the same amount of time as a farm worker. So, it's how you use your time. And for me, when I worked more than 25 hours a week, 30 hours a week, I could feel the difference when I would do more, but I wouldn't really have any insights. Like I would just be in the trees and lose the forest. So it was really a way to kind of create, like, constraints can create creativity. So constraining myself, maybe I was like, I have to be more creative with what I do rather than just working more to fix my problems. And now with a big family, I can't work it's probably more like 15 to 20 hours a week. It's just.
Got it. So some of the questions that I'm going to go through, just a heads up, will be a little bit randomized, jumping here and there, because these are questions that I got from our participants. So let's start with, how you think about sales. What is your philosophy of sales?
Well, first, I would say it's a great question, is that what I didn't understand. So I had a business that failed when I was late 20s. And I wrote about this in the Predictable Revenue book, but basically raised money, millions of dollars, $5 million, and the company failed. And one of the reasons was I, as CEO, didn't know how sales really worked. I didn't know how to build a sales team or a sales process or a sales system. Every entrepreneur or a person who's entrepreneurial knows how to sell at some level. But that's different than building a professional sales system. So to me, really looking at sales as a life skill. So, and appreciating that and the value of selling and learning how to sell in a systematic way. Because that, whether you're starting a nonprofit or a business or getting a promotion, no matter what you want to do in life, you'll need at some point to accomplish anything to know how to sell, whether it's yourself, a product, or an idea. So I think that is fundamentally the philosophy, and understanding selling or making money is it's like learning how to play the guitar. It's not something you're born with. It's not something you can't do. It's something you can get better at with practice. Mm-hmm. So that's the place to start with.
Understood. Sales as the life skill. Interesting. So why did you, I know that you had a company that you co-founded in 99, 2001. You raised 5 million, went bust, maybe the dot-com burst. And then why did you decide to, and I know you started in M&A, then moved as a product manager. Why did you get into sales at Salesforce in the first place?
So that was because my company failed, and I was like, I need to learn sales. So yeah, okay, reading books is one thing, but I need to get a sales job. And to really learn something, you have to do it. So I was like, I'm going to get a sales job. And we're better than at salesforce.com. Now,
Yeah.
Salesforce at the time was small, 25 million in revenue, 150 people. Because now they're probably 15 billion in revenue and 50,000 people.
Right.
Really, that was it. It was just to get a sales job. And I didn't even know what salesforce.com really was or what a CRM was. And the only job they had was, they didn't even have a sales job. They just had a job answering the 800 line or doing website leads, the most junior job there was. So this is another important lesson. It was, I didn't let my ego get in the way of doing what I needed to do to learn what I needed to learn. In that case, it was going from being a venture funded internet CEO to being basically the most junior job, the most junior sales job they had, just to learn how it worked. So I would say that's something, one of the lessons is, no matter, and this is for my own kids too, don't be afraid to do the dirty work. Like the dirty work, like if you want to start a restaurant business, work in a restaurant. If you want to start a nail salon, it's because I have a 21-year-old who wants to start a restaurant or do a nail salon. Like the best thing to do is get a job in one and learn the ins and outs, do the dirty work first, because then when you start it, you'll already know how it works. And you'll save so much money by doing the grunt work, the dirty work first, versus, you know, not having done it and you just don't really know what you're doing. You're basically have to spend money to kind of figure it out.
Right. So at your time at Salesforce, if we continue that timeline, obviously you got the organization in place that drove about $100 million in recurring revenue for Salesforce, which is huge. How did you go about doing that? Or, you know, like double click there and talk to us a little bit about how you did it.
So, again, first had a failure. So basically had the courage to try something, it didn't work out, failed. Learned from that. All right. There's no failure if you learn from what you do. Okay. I need to know sales. I'll get whatever the job is, I'll take it, and I'm not going to let my ego get in the way. So I get into Salesforce. I'm like, okay, I'll get there and I'll kind of figure out, I'm not going to stay in a junior job forever. So I'll get there, I'll get to the land, I'll learn, and then I'll kind of find something to do there to make my way. And one, again, key thing I did there is when I started there, I just went out and talked to people all across the company in different areas. I would talk to people in support. I talked to people in sales. I met, you know, the leaders. I met people in wherever. I just want to meet people and learn how the company worked. And as part of that, over the few months, I just learned more about what the problems were of the company. So one of the problems I discovered was that we didn't have enough leads or enough pipeline for our enterprise market. We'd hired a lot of expensive salespeople, field salespeople. We built a product, but we weren't getting leads for that enterprise market. And I learned that the salespeople had been hired with the idea of, hey, we'll hire you, you'll have relationships, you'll bring leads in. And that wasn't working.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was just going out and just going to talk to people around the company to just, first of all, just meet them and learn how different parts of your company work. And just kind of you can be an entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneur inside Salesforce. I found a problem that was important to management inside Salesforce. And it's like, you know what? I don't know much about prospecting. Actually, I don't know anything about prospecting. I barely knew anything about sales at that point, but give me a shot to figure it out. And so that was kind of, part of this is having the courage, or if you don't have the courage, at least the desire to make a difference and being willing to get outside your comfort zone. So go meet people that you don't know, go be willing to learn about things you may not know about, and kind of look for patterns. And sometimes it's easier for you to see a problem because you're the one who's outside it and kind of talk with it.
Yeah.
And then if you see it, kind of like now it's an internal sales job, which is, here's a problem. How are you going to suggest solving it or getting a chance to solve it? So that was really led me to then getting this opportunity to figure out outbound prospecting for Salesforce. So that was step one. Step two, a different step was actually like figuring out how that worked. And that was the same thing around, I read a bunch of sales books and I tried the thing. There's something called veto letters. There's I tried a bunch of things from people's books and it didn't work. And I just kind of threw out all that and sat down and tried some stuff myself. Just had again, go back to the willingness to experiment without copying, just to kind of trust your own intuition and your own ideas.
Sure.
And came up with, multiple things. One, referral methods, and a lot of this was just kind of really following my interests. What did I want to do? There's this balance between doing what people needed, but also what did I really want to do? What was I interested in? Whether or not it was relevant to what people needed. I remember, for example, I was just interested in things like manufacturing. There was a book called The Toyota Way that I just was interested in, like lean manufacturing. There's a book called Lean Six Sigma. I was just interested in it. There's a book called Wooden. So, it wasn't like, oh, here's my list of books I think I should read just because other people read them. It's like, well, what do I want to learn about? And it turns out that those books they're foundational books and ideas towards the sales systems, because my approach towards the sales systems I did were very assembly line manufacturing oriented. It's like combining solving someone's problem, but in a way that really fit my mentality and what I wanted to do as an engineer. So kind of learning how to trust myself. And again, and I still do this today. There's, it's like just doing things. People need to do things and explore areas of interest just because they're interesting, not because there's some reason to do it. Like I want to do composting at the house here, and there's maybe because we have too much food and other stuff, but I just kind of want to do it. There's not really a reason to do it other than I just want to. And I think that a lot of that gets lost in the shuffle because people have so many responsibilities and feel like obligations that sometimes that inner desire for what do you want to do gets drowned out.
Understood. Some of the things that you mentioned could, anybody could replicate it, right? Going into a company, moving around, talking to people, learning about the company, or figuring out your likes and then continuing to execute. Great point.
It might be over years, it might be over months.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what entrepreneurs do too. They just go talk to people.
Yeah. Figure out problems.
They look for problems and they look for one that they can solve. And then at some point though, they they kind of have to have the courage or the guts to say, yeah, I can do this, even when they're not really sure how they'll do it.
Right. Yeah. The leap of faith. So the next question is actually related to that. There are a lot of people amongst our participants who are at an idea stage, right? They have something that they want to do. So sales, and to your point, it's a life skill and it will help you at pretty much everything that you do, right? Like recruitment, getting a job, whatever. So at an idea stage, I have an idea. How do you think a sales skill would help me?
So I have an idea. So, okay, here's one of the things that you need to do, which is people get great ideas, right? You have your idea, and I'm going to make a new kind of cell phone case. I'm going to make a new kind of coffee cup, or I'm going to make a new kind of sales software. Wow. But you also have to go out and learn how to think who's your customer and how do you think like them? So selling, ultimately, you can think of selling as I'm learning how to help people. And I'm learning how to understand what their problems are so I can give them a solution to their problems. And so I can help show them that this will solve their problems. Because a lot of people don't know. So fundamentally, if you're going to start a business or selling, it's who are your best customers? Who needs you the most? And how do they think? What do they think they need? So you're learning how to speak a new language. You're learning how to speak the customer language. It's you can learn Spanish. Okay, you want to go to Spain? You got to learn how to speak Spanish. If you want to start a business selling to someone, you got to learn how to speak their language. That's what selling is, or part of it, is learning what's the language they're speaking, and then how do you give it to them so they see that they understand it.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, if I, as an entrepreneur, or I want to be an entrepreneur, I have an idea, I can take that and speak the customer language and see if my solution will help their problem.
It's finding who can I help with it.
Okay.
So what are they trying to buy? What do they want? They don't care. If you're selling expense management software, they don't care about that. they're not trying to solve expense management. They're trying to solve, keeping their employees reimbursed on time. Right?
Right.
It's like, how do you understand what's the problem they're solving in their language? Because we're all so me. So you have to understand like what's in it for them. So going out and
Got it.
speaking to them, honestly, even with COVID changes, you have an idea. The best thing you can do is not do online surveys and you can go out and talk, well, virtually, and go out and talk to people. Like it's so simple, but it doesn't happen enough. Is go out and talk to customers, go out and talk to prospects. Like call them interviews or talking. That's really the best way to learn from taking an idea and ground it in reality, which is it's really easy to come up with an idea on a whiteboard and it's exciting. The hard part is going out and finding people who like it and like it enough to spend money on it or spend time on it.
Right. Yeah. So we tell people, right, like go and talk to people, right? But somebody who is, for example, let's say there is an introvert, right? Or they have never done this before. And they are sitting inside, it's COVID time. What is the step-by-step process that they can follow to talk to people?
So one of the important ones would be kind of like if you're starting a new exercise regime or diet regime or studying regime, like you're adding a new habit, a new way of thinking. So you have to realize it's going to take some practice. Let's go back to the guitar lesson. It takes practice. You're getting muscle memory. And I guess I was an introvert. I was very shy. Sometimes I still am. But it's not that you are an introvert. It's just you might be afraid of people. You might be afraid of rejection. There's like these fears. So how do you kind of change habits? One is you get an accountability buddy. It might be a mentor, coach, you're in a program. There's someone there to help you think through what do you need to do and then help you do that one way or the other. Like accountability buddies, put it on the schedule, goals, whatever works for you. I know for me, what works for me, I call them forcing functions, which is committing to do things publicly, like publishing a book by a certain date or even a blog post or do a webinar in a certain date. Because like when I tell people I announce it, then I have to follow through. So you have to find your own way of what motivates you or keeps you moving, even when things are going horribly, because they're never going to go well all the time. I mean, you can pick any role model you've got, whether it's Elon Musk or I don't know, Arjun, if you have a role model, who's one of your role models?
Oh, I have a variety, but yes, Steve Jobs is one, Elon is one. We have our own in India too. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, they're going to have things that are going well in their life and a whole bunch of things that are going shit in their life. So it's not like, there's times when things are going well, lots of times there's like lots of problems. So what you can't wait for is everything to be perfect. Like, even if I don't feel like I've got time, money, energy, or ideas, like how do I keep myself moving to take steps forward? So ultimately that's very personal to who you are. It's kind of like food. Everyone's bodies are different. Motivation, organization, everyone's different. So you kind of like need to study yourself to know, oh, okay, when I felt inspired, why? When I felt depressed, why? Like what works for me? Lately with COVID, what really works for me, finally have some time I go out in the morning when I can and go for like a walk outside. Like it just gets me ideas. Drawing, like simple drawings, like I have like kids videos on YouTube, like how to draw a shark. Like it's just fun. Like that all stuff kind of works for me, but everyone's different.
Yeah. The one question that came up was, what should a founder do if he or she does not know sales today?
If you can get a sales job, that's the best step.
Okay.
If you read, so besides that, if you can get 3 sales books, I mean, I've heard this advice from someone, it made sense, is if there's any topic you want to learn about, get 3 books about it, and you're pretty much going to know as much as most experts, at least theoretically. It's very different when you practice it. So the best thing to learn anything is to do it. Second best is to read up on it. And another option, so the easiest would be to read books. The next step is to do like an interview series, go out and like interview people, talk to people who've done it. And most, and getting actually doing that job is like, in doing it is the best. And you can do all 3, of course.
In your opinion, should a founder sell from 0 to million, 0 to 2 million? Like what is the kind of the founder sales for it to work?
Probably at least do the selling or be involved in the first 10 or 20 customers.
Okay.
Whatever that looks like. Again, I mean, if you're selling $5 customers versus $5,000 customers, but
Sure.
you kind of, if you're not learning, like if you're doing it and you stop learning, then that's a good time to kind of bring more people in and do some more delegation. I got some question on like which sales books, by the way.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't have a great recommendation.
Obviously, predictable revenue should be one.
Yes, or the new one, the impossible to inevitable.
Impossible to inevitable. Yeah, those two.
That's a better one for entrepreneurs to start with.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't really know because I've heard a lot of people like the Challenger sale a lot.
Yeah.
So sorry, I just haven't read sales books in a long time. So another like a classic one is called spin selling. So those are two, like spin selling has probably been around for, but everyone
ages.
but everyone says it's great, spin selling. But Impossible to Inevitable is like a growth book with some sales in it, but that would be the best one of mine to start with for idea.
Sure.
I'll send that over.
Yeah. So when you say about the niche and there is also this concept of ICP, like ideal customer persona, right? In your mind, are those the same or are those different?
It's different. The niche would be what type. It's kind of like if you were going to run a campaign, or a niche is really, it is the high level. Like, should we focus on Europe or the United States? Should we focus on big companies or small companies? Should we focus on companies that use Salesforce or companies that use HubSpot? It is kind of like big picture where how do we prioritize the kinds of segments and customers to go after? And then if in each segment, I would have an ideal customer profile. So if I pick three niches, right? I'm going to go after Europe, HubSpot customers in Europe, and Salesforce customers in States. Each one might have different ideal customer profiles.
One question that we had was, when I'm a startup, right? I just have an MVP or a product that is in the first version. I don't have brand, no case studies, no proof. Yeah. How do I go about making the other person trust myself and my company and my product?
That's why everyone starts off with word of mouth as much as they can. Right? It's like friends of friends, investors, work your networks, because that's where you can get some traction without having to have all that proof. You can find some become early adopters. And there's some early adopters that they either like are a friend of a friend, they will do you a favor, or they just see it and like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. They just get it. And there's not that many of them. In the Impossible book, we say maybe it's 15%, it's probably less. And then there's the mainstream buyers, which is kind of everyone else. And the mainstream buyers are where you do need a lot of proof in case studies and ROI or, And they're just, early stage, they're just not, you can meet them, but it's not worth trying to sell to them. It's easier to try to find like friends of friends or go to online communities, any place where people are already know you or somehow related to you or related to the topic and engage there.
And at that point of time, another question that came up was, when I'm releasing the first version of my product, how do I think about the pricing of the product?
Pricing is always a pain.
Sure.
I think that's actually a title in one of the chapters. Pricing is always a pain. Of course, one approach is looking at what's comparable out there, right? If you're selling a travel app on the iPhone store and everything's free, you can go free, or maybe everything's $3. So that's one place to look for pricing. The other is, what's the value to the customer? Like, how can you charge more, right? Okay. There's no single way, but I think what you do is, my experience is, you kind of look at what are other people doing, but also what would be the value to people, and you just try it out. So if it's in consulting or services, you might do a proposal, and do people buy it or not? Do they push back on pricing? If it's an online app, you can do sometimes you do the different tiers or test different landing pages to kind of just test for a while. And the problem with pricing is that even if you get pricing done, then, next month or next year, something changes, you got to change it again. So there's no magic bullet with pricing. You just got to come up with something you think is a great start, and go back to talk to people, see if they bite. I would encourage you to think about most entrepreneurs, if it's a first time, price too low. So it doesn't mean that low price, whatever low is, it doesn't mean that low priced services are bad. It just means that you might want to start a little bit higher than you think, see if people buy it, because it's hard to build a big business out of small deals.
Got it. That brings me to another question, right? For your, you always speak about the specialization of roles inside sales teams, right? There is prospecting, there's AECs. In that specialization, or for that model to work, is there a deal size that has to be there? Like, it cannot work for $5, right? Like, how do you think about it?
Yeah. Well, I know in the United States numbers for inside sales, you probably need something that's worth, a few $100s a month, like $200 or $300 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that would translate to other how that translates to other regions where your costs might be a lot lower. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that can be affected by how effective your funnel and conversion rates are. So, for example, if you sold like some sort of consulting service where it's a little bit more custom, then maybe you might need, your minimum deal size might have to be $10,000 or $20,000. So it kind of affects how repeatable it is, but at least, probably a couple $100s a month in the States is like a minimum for dedicated salespeople.
Yeah. So Aaron, we have like 15, 20 minutes. So if we can go through some questions quickly. At a startup,
bam.
As much as possible, right? Real sales to the point. So at the product stage, the MVP product stage, would you invest more in sales side or marketing side?
It depends. If I'm the founder and if I have more of a passion for one or the other, I go with that. So if I just am like a writer and I'm a content maker, I go there. If I'm drawn towards outbound, go there. Assuming everything else is the same.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So follow like where you feel like you already have some energy and enthusiasm for. Now, so if you're a services company, do content. If you're product, if you really don't know, if you're a services company, content. If you are a product company, outbound.
Got it. Are there numbers that you see, like, can you kind of slice out that funnel for the people who are there? Like, how many emails to send a day, what kind of open rates, what kind of click-through rates, what kind of reply rates, what kind of deal rates, something that you see as average?
Yeah, in, I don't know if I can share my screen. In the Impossible book, I happen to have a funnel that I'll just bring up, might be easier. Just give me a second, from a company called Zora. Zora is about a $200 billion company. And I'll just share my screen. Oh, I guess I can't do it, but
yeah.
It starts off like they actually have, a lot of companies have goals for the like database addition, like list building. So their goal is 10. So by the way, first of all, everyone's can be kind of different. So example, so they have a goal, they do more enterprise. So 10 account plans a month and 300 contacts a month, each kind of senior prospectors adding. And then they're doing 600 dials a month or 1,200 new cold emails a month. I'm not sure, they probably have a LinkedIn goal. I'm not sure what that is. A pretty common one is 25 connection requests a day, which is about 500 a month connection requests.
Got it. There are some people asking for a role play kind of a thing. I don't know if we can do a role play for them. And there was also some questions about closing and objection handling. So, is there a role playing that you usually do in your workshops or talks that we can do for the?
I don't know, did they say what kind of role playing, like sales role playing?
Yeah, sales role playing, right? You can be the salesperson, I can be the buyer, and then, we can probably go ahead and I don't know, it came up and I was just thinking if there is one that you do in your workshops.
Probably. I'm trying to think of like what would be relevant here. So, what does your company do again? Actually, Arjun?
Yeah, my company is a B2B chat-based solution like intercom.com or drift.com that you might know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like I probably could do it. Nothing's really coming to mind, but
You can probably do Salesforce, right? Like in fact, I'm looking at Salesforce. So maybe, take
okay,
Salesforce.
okay. So if it's, I'll go. So let's say that we were in a call and, okay, Arjun, hey, by the way, say, hey, I'm Aaron Ross with Salesforce.com. Hey, I got your name from a friend who said you were looking at systems, and I was just calling to find out a bit about what you're looking to do. Do you have a CRM or sales system in place today?
Yeah. We use HubSpot as the CRM.
Yeah. Okay. Is that where all your sales contacts and accounts are, or are you just using it for marketing?
No, we actually use it for our CRM. Like we have contacts, deals, everything is in HubSpot.
You said you're looking at changing that system?
Not specifically changing, but I'm curious to know what you had in mind.
Sure. Well, what do you like and not like about HubSpot right now? That's a key question, by the way. I'll just, okay.
Yeah. Sure. You should point those things out too. I mean, I don't like, there could be a couple more integrations that HubSpot can do that are missing today with HubSpot for sure. Then I'm just in the process of bringing more SDRs to my team. So I'm struggling to like figure out how to attribute deals to, agency leads and then my SDR leads and marketing. So I face a little bit of an attribution problem. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do want to highlight, so if you notice, I asked him, what does he like and not like? So both, but he only basically answered what he doesn't like.
Right.
But what do you like and not like isn't as salesy. So I'm just highlighting that.
Yeah. The thing I like is it is free.
Yeah. It's hard to be free.
Yeah.
And by
but I pay for it.
One other thing to highlight is that it's very hard for people it's hard to replace someone else's product. Mm-hmm. So it's easier if you can sell something or look for places where you're not they don't have to throw away what they do. And you're kind of they're buying something new that they're not replacing. Mm-hmm. So in this case, with the attribution, so can you tell me more about what's going on with the attribution issue?
Like I said, right, I have 6 channels today from marketing and then a couple of outbound SDR channels, which are bringing in leads. And then when the deals are closed and we are closing at a good rate now, it's getting difficult to attribute which lead come from where and to do the sales compensation calculation from there.
Sure. Do you have an audit process for your outbound opportunities?
Today we don't.
Oh, okay. You'd be interested in finding out how an audit process would work? Yeah.
It's not something that I've looked into, but I'd be curious.
Yeah. What's more, I get it. Like if you have all this investment in your lead generation and inbound and outbound, and then you kind of start to struggle with not sure what's actually generating leads, or maybe pretty common that the attribution is mislabeled, like misattributed, and don't know what your actual return on outbound is or your return on inbound or other channels. So one of the solutions we recommend would be having a audit process on all the at least outbound opportunities. So you have a lot more confidence and consistency in what is being labeled as outbound. And so more trust, clarity in what's being generated to the outbound channel. But I actually could send you, I'll send you a deck. It's called Outbound Sales Mistakes Even Smart Leaders Make. So I can explain some more. So now let's say that just to stepping out, if I would be, feel like we're still have a problem that we could solve. Let's say, well, like, if you want to talk more about that, do you have your calendar handy? We could set up a time with myself, if I'm either me or myself and a partner, to go into more detail about this and walk you through the process and kind of like basically go to the next step. So.
Got it. No, that was good. Thank you. So folks, hope you got the points where Aaron highlighted it, asking the problem statements and then kind of positioning the product and some solutions, sending some content. All of those are important pieces in getting the first foot in the door.
And I wasn't going on about what I do. Of course, we didn't know, we were just making it up as we went, but most of what you should be doing is asking questions and talking about them, talking a little bit about you, but not yet till you kind of know what exactly is the problem they're solving. Like what exactly is the problem they want to solve? And how can you just kind of take the pieces of what you do to solve that one problem?
Mhm.
And then you want to sort of dig into that a bit and then set the next step.
What is the right time to hire a salesperson in a startup?
So I think we actually have these 4 phases of building a first sales team. Phase 0, as you mentioned, is the CEO is selling. Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you don't sell it yourself, and you don't have to do it all yourself, you're doing it, you're involved in it. So if you don't do that, you're not going to have the hands-on experience to know what works and what doesn't.
Right.
So then the first hire is often a junior salesperson, okay, an SDR of some sort, like a sales development rep, who helps basically takes on a lot of the appointment setting, whether it's outbound or inbound, for the CEO. So the CEO still is the salesperson. Then they bring in a junior person to support the CEO. Then once that's working, and at the right time, you would either promote the junior person to sales or hire a senior salesperson. So then the next step is you have one senior person, salesperson, and one junior salesperson. Right. And then after that, you get 2 senior, 2 junior. After that, a sales leader. But I think again, the important point is hire a junior person first. If you're going to hire, if you hire a salesperson first, unless it's a perfect fit, and sometimes you find them, usually it's a mishire. So start with CEO sales and a junior person to support them.
Yeah, that brings me to the next question, Aaron. So many people hires salespeople, and those end up being mishires. The problem is from the 0 day, it takes 90 days to build up pipeline, all of that ramping up time, right? It's typically between 0 to 3. What are the leading indicators that a founder can look for during this time to make sure that they are not screwing up?
Well, first of all, you need to feel like you're learning something from the person you hire.
Okay.
So if, or so much about sales, either you know it all, like you're confident and you just need someone and you can teach them, you show them how to do it, or you're trying to figure this out and you need to hire someone that you're learning from, whether it's a salesperson or someone senior. So I think you should know, you can kind of tell within a month, do you feel like there's progress that was made? Whether or not you have sales, there's some progress that you feel like you're seeing. It might be activity levels, it might be like proposals, but there's a lot of salespeople who are good at selling themselves and bullshitting. So you should really keep an eye on. This is where you wouldn't want to just hire them and then like dump everything on them and then never talk to them. You still want to be co-selling with them for a month or 2, which might mean they're doing setting up all the calls and the proposals, and you're showing up on the calls sometimes with them, or vice versa. And you should do that anyway to kind of work out how you're going to do this together. So you still need to be co-selling, and through that you'll know, do I trust this person or not? Do I see some traction or not? Are things going in the right direction or not? One of the biggest reasons their sales mishires happen is because a founder who hasn't built sales teams before has unrealistic expectations on what's supposed to happen. Okay. They think, okay, maybe they've got some sales, and they hire a salesperson, and they just expect the salesperson to be able to do it as well as they can. And the salesperson doesn't have the founder's magic you do. They might have more experience. So it's usually founders are too aggressive in what they think will happen too soon. And part of it's the salesperson's fault from overselling themselves, and part of it is the founder's fault for not being unrealistic.
Got it. Switching a little bit on the tech side of things, there was a question about what are the automation things, like what is your stack, the tech stack for sales that you would advise an early stage company?
There's so many out there. I probably would, HubSpot, if it's free, something simple. HubSpot, I'm not actually, a lot of people like it. There's Salesforce and HubSpot can be quite complicated because they can do a lot. So if you're just starting out, there's so many like Gmail plugins. I don't even keep track of all of them because there's so many. Just start simple. Spreadsheets are fine. You want to start with something that you can it's easy to change and manage. Then if you have something working, you might decide, okay, we basically got started with glue and sticks. So now we know about what we're doing. So now we're ready to make a more informed choice for like a real CRM. It might be 6 months or 2 years later.
Right. Outside the CRM, what are the other tools that somebody should add to their stack?
Well, I think again, if you're doing content, you use some sort of marketing tool. Like could even be simple, like a newsletter. You know, mail. There's a million of them now, right? Mailchimp. We used
Mailchimp.
Mailchimp for a long time. Then we switched to something different. I actually don't remember offhand because I'm a marketing person.
Mhm.
I don't, you know, I use, it's like LinkedIn and LinkedIn Sales Navigator is often really important.
Sure.
I don't really use myself a lot. It's like WordPress for sites, simple stuff.
Mhm.
Keep it simple to start. Like the thing is, I know it's tempting to try to like over engineer stuff at the beginning, but you just
Right.
waste so much time trying to overbuild it versus keeping, starting with simple steps and getting it to work. And then once once it's working, okay, then making more of like a more of an official product choice and investment. But
Got it.
Evernote, I use Evernote, Google Docs, WordPress, iPhone. I mean, there's nothing, simple stuff.
There was another question that was like, if I want to switch to a career in sales, where should I start today? Yeah, and will it go back to your thing of identifying the problem, talk to more people, or is there something more like a tip that you can give?
So if you wanted to start as a carrier?
No. So you want to switch your career.
Oh,
You want to be a salesperson from tomorrow. What do you do?
Oh, yeah, okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I start by reaching out to friends at other companies, right? And say, are those companies hiring in sales? If they're not, could they create a sales job for you? Those where I'd start, you know, again, friends, family, networks, people you already know. It's just easier. It's not that's the only place I'd look, but it's just a lot easier when they know you in some way, especially in these times when everyone is, you know, a lot of uncertainty and fear and doubt. Now there's lots of companies that are hiring lots of people too, you know, but I'd start with people you know and be prepared too. Like sales, if it's not something you inherently like, you know, you may not like it at first, but if you get good at it, you can at least stop unliking it and start to appreciate it. So don't be afraid to put in, say, hey, I'm going to do this for 6 months or a year or whatever, some amount of time to get over that initial hump of, I don't like this. This isn't working. I'm not learning anything. You got to get over that hump to really get to it. And I went through that, like, oh, this is boring. You know, even the first 3 months, like, oh, this is gonna be boring. I already figured this out, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of pushed through that and went through different periods of like, I'm learning a lot. I'm not learning anything. That's Salesforce.
Yeah.
So you just got to keep going through those to really like learn it to the point where you're satisfied.
What are you seeing with this COVID situation and sales? Like, is it going down, up, struggle? What's happening?
You know, everything. So in general, everything's down, but we haven't really hit the big recession yet.
Right.
A lot of governments been propping up economies.
Yeah.
Some companies are doing great, of course. A lot are struggling. There's a lot that are just kind of dead in the water now. So it's all over the place. But I find a lot of people, there's lots of companies that are seeing sales, like there's a several weeks of paralysis, right? Back in like March and April. That's starting to loosen up a little bit. You know, most buyers are going to be cautious. Things are just going to be slower. And what I tell a lot of sales executives or executives are, you're going to have to be prepared to throw away old quota expectations and comp expectations and activity expectations. If your business has been impacted significantly by COVID, you may just need to honestly be kind of like a week by week approach of like, what do we do this week? What works or not? What can we do next week? How do we want to comp people this week and next week? Because we can't forecast anything. We have no idea what's going to happen this year. We're doing very like week by week approaches. So there's a lot to learn. Like the greatest challenge the world's ever seen so far, but also then the greatest opportunity. Like there's never been a better time to recreate yourself or your business. This is it.
Right. One other question again about COVID was, do you think the face-to-face meetings are going to vanish completely, or virtual taking over, the percentage change?
Well, no, of course they won't vanish, but things will be shifted more digitally after this. So if half the meetings in the world were face-to-face, you know, last year, even when lockdown eases up, and so now let's say it's 0% right now. And from 50% we're all face-to-face to 0, and then it won't go back to 50%, it might go back to 35%. So everything's going to be more virtual for a while, and lockdowns may ease up. Maybe they'll go back. Like no one knows. So I think people,
Sure.
it's like need to be prepared to do everything virtually, and to embrace it and the opportunity of that, and realize, yeah, once lockdown eases, if there will be some things that are better face to face, but being smart about it rather than needed to go face to face all the time, just because that's what people did all the time out of habit.
Right. Yeah. It's actually a good opportunity for companies even outside US to start selling into US because people are more comfortable buying online.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all, in the US, I think was like that. Like I know in Europe, in the UK, for example, people were just more anti-virtual before. Like if there's virtual training versus real person training, they always want to go to the real person face to face. Like that's going to change more in places like, in the face to face countries. The US is still pretty.
A couple of technologies or industries that you would bet, given COVID, for the future.
Well, I mean, there's a lot that are already taken off, like basically telemedicine, anything around virtual management, remote management, communication, collaboration, deliveries, e-commerce, like anything, like whether the lockdown eases or not, there's going to be more people will stay at home, more virtual stuff, more remote stuff.
Sure.
So I would just look at, honestly, there's people who do studies on the industries that are already doing better, and I would just start with that.
Like outside the two good books that you have written, what is one favorite book that you have? Outside business also.
One of the books that was life-changing was The Four Agreements. That was one of them when I was probably in my 20s. I don't remember when I read it. Yeah, The Four Agreements. I can't remember the author. He's four. I don't know. It's everywhere. You can look it up.
Yeah. One question that came up: do you suggest a movie for sales lessons?
Yeah. Although it's just more for entertainment. But if you haven't seen Glenn Ross, it's just an entertaining movie. I wouldn't advise it. It's just like you have to watch it, especially Alec Baldwin. It's the most famous sales pitch ever. It's amazing.
Yeah. The best advice you have ever gotten from somebody, from who and what was it?
That's a good question. Best advice was just to, marry the girl, right? Don't have whatever fears or concerns. If it's like, and this is kind of true, if there's something that you feel like you want to do, start a company, marry someone, have kids. Don't let your fears and doubts stop you from that. Like, it's not going to be perfect. You just got to jump in when you know at some level that it's the right thing to do. Kind of like jump in and figure it out as you go. Just like a company, there's no way you can get it perfect. You get it perfect by doing it. You don't get it perfect on a whiteboard. So basically, like just take the leap.
Cool. And is there a code that you really like, you keep to your heart, a best code?
Like a code of conduct in a way, or?
No. My Indian accent is acting up. It's a quote, like a sentence that you keep close, like said by somebody, a quotation.
Oh, quote. Yeah. Close enough. Yeah. Just, how to explain it? It's like breathe and smile,
Okay.
When things are rough, kind of like slow down, whether you call it meditation or going for a walk, just kind of recenter and go back to looking at it as an opportunity. And like so that's one, but also embrace the shit. Another one is don't run away or avoid from hard things or uncomfortable things or scary things. Like, how can you, if you're going into debt, if you're in a bad relationship, if your business is going out of business, if your customer wants to quit, like, how can you just like embrace it, like get into it, like deal with it rather than avoid it?
Got it. And last question, what is your advice to your 20-year-old self?
That's a good question. I think I was probably just too cautious. I wasn't really out there like living. If I had sort of said, here's the things I want to do before I die, and just working on them and doing that, whether it was like different travel. I mean, I stayed at home. If I worked a lot, I stayed at home a lot, and I don't remember what I did. if it was like movies or just wasting my time. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
doing things, just wasn't living life the way I could have lived life in all ways, whether it was professionally or personally. You know, I don't remember what I did on weekends. I probably just hung out a lot versus hanging out plus learning a skill. Like if I'd started guitar way back when, or going back to my art, or have more confidence with meeting people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Perfect. Perfect. With that, thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you so much for your 1 hour. I think it is priceless.